this on? Yes, okay. I'm super nervous, so forgive me. And I need some notes for the first time ever. Okay. So, I was introduced, so this slide kind of feels silly, having my name up there. But my name is Gordon Van Dyke, and I am the Chief Combustion Officer for Raw Fury Games. We just started just basically a month ago, and we're here to kind of formally announce Raw Fury Games at Slush Play, and we also wanted to kind of talk about what we mean by starting an unpublisher. So we started tweeting about this, and we got a lot of questions, of course, and it was a bit intentional that we wanted that kind of attention. But I showed my presentation to my partner, Jónas, and he said, no, you have to start it off with a joke. And I thought about this, and I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of pressure. So I decided to do this instead. I'll let somebody else do a joke for me. And what is the answer? Tentacles. Tentacles coral. I think he pronounces his name that way because he's actually a British actor, if anybody didn't know that. The British are coming. So, now back to the actual point of my presentation. So, we have this traditional publishing that has, unfortunately, has a slightly negative reputation. And a lot of that we feel had to do with that the market has really changed, and how games are getting into the hands of gamers has changed drastically over the years. But publishing really typically hasn't changed at all, which kind of has led to this current perception that kind of surrounds them. It also kind of indirectly helped motivate the rise of the indies who, turned to self-publishing. And that came about through digital distribution, AAA quality tools in the hands of anybody. And then you had, Steam doing things like greenlighting. You had crowdfundings from Kickstarters and all these new ways of getting there. But what this kind of indirectly caused later on, and at the point where we're at now, is it kind of created now this fierce competition, and now this rise of the need of a publisher for these indie guys who kind of tossed, and gave the middle finger to the publishers for a while, and we're able to do that. But that's kind of changed now. So now we need a different way. And is there a different way? And we feel that there is a different way, which is how Raw Fury came to be. The industry really needs some, these guys that can come in here, start fresh. They don't have these legacy policies. They don't have these legacy systems set up in place that are very difficult to change, to defend these publishers who have, gotten this reputation, whether it's deserved or undeserved. So we really needed somebody who could support these small developers, these indie developers, these guys with these boutique games that are really weird, that might not sell 1 million or, a couple million copies and recoup, their investment 30, 40 times over. So we needed to unlearn how to publish, and come at the perspective of these developers and their situation and really formulate something that's kind of spoke to what they were doing in the same language. So that's where we came up with the term unpublishing. And fireworks went off when we thought of this, by the way. That's why I added that effect. But we needed to, but we still need to fund them. And that's where the core similarities come in. This is why typically a lot of these small developers need a publisher, and they need funding. They also need marketing and support with that and PR. But a lot of the times it comes down to, I need money to make my game. But along with that, there came kind of some things that really were didn't fit with these guys, and things that, kind of went against their core philosophies. And a lot of that was losing their IP. And this is something that typically comes from their soul. It's this idea that means the world to them. And now they're in this dilemma where they basically have to sacrifice this. They have to take their lamb, put it up on the altar, and slit its throat. And that's really hard for a lot of people. And sometimes there's probably a lot of people who have just given up because they didn't want to do that. They rather not make it at all than sacrifice this idea of theirs and give it to somebody else. So, another thing that we wanted to really unlearn was that, you really shouldn't have to force them into a production pipeline. You need to work with these guys in a way that makes sense for them. Not all of them come from AAA backgrounds or large studios and developers and have a specific way of doing things. They do it in the way that makes sense to them, that comes natural. And you really need to be able to support that and not force them into these things where they have milestone check-ins and these gate reviews that are completely foreign to them and could also, indirectly and accidentally stifle their creativity. We also wanted to make sure that you split the revenue fairly. Typically, when you go to a publisher, and this is true throughout the entertainment industry, it's not just games. Music has the same scenarios. And these guys, they need to pay back and recoup for the publisher typically 10 times what was invested. So simple numbers, it's like if you were given an advance of $100,000 to make this game, but you needed to pay back 10 times that, the publisher would need to earn $1 million on this, which means that if it only made $300,000 or $500,000, the publisher has made a profit, but the developer never gets anything in return. They don't start to get a revenue share, and they don't get these things back. So they're left in a dilemma where they now have no more money, and they either have to close down their studio, close down shop, find a real job, as my mom would say, and they need to go. They have to start over again, and that's very, very difficult. So we need to unlearn that and try and find a way to split the revenue fairly from day one. And we think we have a solution for that, but I don't think we're not sharing it, right, Jónas? No, all right. No, but it's pretty obvious, right? So also, when you go out and you do this marketing, a lot of times traditionally it's like, we're going to hold this feature back, we're going to save this, and we're going to talk about this at this point, and we're saving this for this show and this convention and this and that and this trailer, yada, yada, yada. Not telling these guys how to talk about it. When they get excited about something, about their development, let them talk about it. Don't force them to save this thing that they're excited about for 6 months, because by that time, I'm pretty sure all of us would be not so excited about that idea anymore. And now it's like, yeah, okay, but no, I'm excited about this thing now. No, save that thing for 6 months. Let's talk about that thing you were excited about 6 months ago. And you lose some of the spark. You lose some of that personality, that, a person who isn't perfect, you lose that from that, which I think a lot of people who love indie games and want to play these more, quirky, unique experiences, they want that from the developers as well. They're not going to be put off if you don't have a polished, perfect rollout campaign introducing your product, which it tends to turn into if you do that. Also, not forcing them to adopt a business model. You don't go, hey, guess what? And I'm gonna pick on free-to-play. It's like, free-to-play, it's the next thing. Everybody's doing it. That's what's gonna be the future. Everything's gonna be free-to-play. But if that person doesn't understand that business model, they don't believe in that business model, how are you gonna force them to support that and create a game that fits in that and feels natural? And of course, if that's what they wanted from the intent, let them do free-to-play. But we want to work with them, and the business model is about what they believe in. It's about what makes sense to them. And also, one of the last points that we're going to share, obviously there's a lot more, but this is what we wanted to share because I only have 1 minute and 24 seconds according to this left, and I'm going to run over, is to, you want to stay in the background as a publisher. I find it strange that, typically with publishers, their logo shows up first in a trailer. Their logo shows up when you start a game. It's all over the place. You're being spammed by this publisher for what? What have they created? They've supported and they funded somebody. That's great. But it's like, you don't walk around with badges with your parents' picture on them and say, look, my mom and dad created me, and look how great I'm doing. It's kind of the same thing. It's like you need to be in the background. You need to support them on the sideline and not force yourself on everybody. And so we want to do that. We want to look at how we can change that. I have some ideas. I don't know if my partner supports them, but I think we're going to do it. But we have a friend who wants to kind of talk about this publishing as well. And so I'm going to introduce Simon Callahan.
So when they set out to make the world's first unpublisher, I realised it would be the most difficult challenge they ever faced. The materials would need to be the finest anyone had ever materialised and formed in a way that had never been done before. Making this unpublisher will introduce new experiences, new challenges, new excuses for failure on a level so intimate and so unique, you wouldn't even share this with your psychologist. We're at one of the most compelling moments in games, where experiences that no one ever imagined possible or thought necessary have a chance to be created and offered through channels we're all more comfortable with than our own naked bodies. Unpublishing, so familiar, yet so new.
I'm still surprised I convinced my friend Simon to do that, that trailer. I was really going to try really hard to imitate an Apple presentation, but I realized that I can't do it. But that was my attempt. That was my Johnny Ives to my Tim Cook, and I guess I'm Tim Cook. But, talking about kind of our ideology, these things that we really want to change. I mean, we kind of know that the term unpublisher is a stupid word. It's something that we came up with. I don't know if he's comfortable with me, but there's a certain gentleman in this audience who's the one that actually came up with that term, and we kind of ran with it. But it's an oxymoron in itself, right? But it's about like unlearning the things that we've thought needed to be this way. It's about upheaving these and kind of looking at it in a different way, figuring out how can we change this to support this new, this new kind of developer, this new, these new type of games that don't fit within that traditional model that how we see traditional games. And I think VR, tying into this event, kind of fits into that in a lot of ways as well. But it also can support those big games like Valkyrie, hey, CCP, and these awesome games. But then it's even going to push the boundaries even more for creating these weird experiences that that only can happen with this new technology. That's awesome. Which another game that you guys have up there where you're grabbing fireballs and throwing, it's just phenomenal. But we need to kind of upheave these things. We need to reshape how we do things. We don't have to do everything the same way. We shouldn't do it the ways we've been doing it before. And that's really what Raw Fury is and what we want to achieve. We want to throw everything on its head and redo the way we do it. And that's more or less who we are. And this quote from Vincent van Gogh I found quite a few months ago, and I actually tweeted this, that this guy would have made an awesome indie developer. Because this really speaks to what we go through, and typically what everybody's going through, even if they're on a small indie project or if you're on a AAA project. I think that this resonates with all of us. And so I threw it in there, trying to be cool. So, Raw Fury Games, and who are really, we're former developers as well. And I think that will help us achieve this because we've been in that situation. We've we've been in the situation where we didn't want to give up our IP for funding. We wanted these things. We wanted to really, we wanted something different. And now we have this unique situation where we can offer those things and help these guys. And we can, be the, we're for developers, by developers. And that really matters to us, and it's important to us. And I think that really, at the end of the day, is what's going to separate us from everyone else, where we can offer a solution that is like publishing, but it's not publishing. And that's why it's unpublishing. So that's, in our opinion, how you start an unpublisher and, and undo everything you thought you knew and start over. Thank you.